YouTube channel. My name is Roxanne, the Tiny Taster, and today's recipe is fantastic because I never thought I would actually do this. It is a simple chocolate-filled cookies. So while I love cooking, it's baking that I'm actually really intimidated by. I don't know, for some reason I just can't seem to bake and I can't seem to get my head around desserts, but I'm trying, I'm experimenting more. This recipe I actually experimented with twice or thrice because it either kept sticking to the paper or the portions were right, but I finally have it down and I'm so excited to share. It's really easy, it's rustic. You can make these as big or as small as you like. I've used chunks of chocolate. You could use chocolate chip, you could mix it up and put whatever you want. It's really simple. I hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, as always, don't forget to give it a big fat like, share it with all your friends, subscribe to the channel. Many recipes, and I promise I'm gonna try and do more dessert stuff as well. So I hope you enjoy this, and without any further ado, let's get cooking. Oh wait, baking.
So for this recipe, you're going to need room temperature butter. Mine was a little bit cold, but please keep it room temperature. It'll just make things easier. Now, I like to melt the butter. You can do this in the microwave, or like I have, you could do it on a bain-marie. Just put a pot of boiling water on the stove and then another pot on top of that and melt your butter. Since mine was completely frozen, actually, it took a little bit of time, so room temperature is ideal. And this actually helps when you melt down your sugar. So I've added in my brown sugar first and then I'm just melting it and mixing it. I think it just helps the sugar dissolve a little bit better so then you don't get those crystallized chunks in your cookie. To this mixture, you will then add in your white sugar. You can use caster sugar. In this case, I've used icing sugar. I just thought that's easier. I would not recommend granulated sugar because that was a bit of a disaster. So caster sugar is ideal, but I've also used icing, which should be just fine. Mix it all together and then take this off the heat and just let it cool down a little bit. It can't be very hot when you add your eggs. Honestly, don't go by how it looks. I think I was a little bit taken aback initially, but it all comes together, I promise you. Now, once this mixture has cooled down a little bit, because it cannot be very hot or your eggs will scramble, just add in your eggs one at a time and then break it up and mix it right through. Add in a little splash of vanilla essence or vanilla extract, about a teaspoon or so, just to get rid of that eggy taste, and then mix it again. And now it's time for our dry ingredients. So along with the flour, I've added in some baking soda and a pinch of salt. I've mixed all of that together, and now in bits, I'm going to add the flour to my wet mixture. I was a little bit intimidated because, like I keep mentioning, this is not my strong suit with baking, and I wasn't sure whether this was coming together or not. So don't get scared at this point if it looks funky again. Just keep mixing it through and just make sure that the flour doesn't stick to the side of the batter or the side of the bowl. And then just in bits, it might take 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 times to do this, but just keep mixing it well and avoid any lumps or any clumps of flour. Okay, at this stage, I've added in all my flour and it's just coming together. This is the last bits that I'm mixing well. In case you think that this batter looks strange or it's too wet and you need to add more flour, please don't. Just follow the instructions and ingredient measurements exactly. Baking, as I have learned over many failed experiments, is quite the exact science. So just stick to the measurements and you'll be fine. It has to look a bit chunky like this. Now at this stage, you will add in your pieces of chocolate. You can add chocolate chips, of course, but I find that bits of chocolate or little pieces just make it a little bit more easier to eat and not too chocolatey. Now I've gone a little bit less in terms of quantity because I didn't want the chocolate to be overpowering. You could add more chocolate bits. Again, I'll leave exact measurements, but in terms of chocolate, you can play around with that and put as much or as little as you like. You can use dark chocolate or milk chocolate. It doesn't really matter. Once your batter is completely mixed and ready and you've added in all the chocolate chips and mixed it well, I would highly recommend popping this into the refrigerator for about an hour. You can actually leave it in the fridge for up to 5 or 7 days. You can make cookies in batches. It's perfectly fine. It will stay, but a minimum of an hour to just let it set and become a little firm. So now my batter has rested for over an hour, and I've just lined my baking tray with some parchment paper, and I'm taking a teaspoon to sort of measure out my cookies. Ideally, you can use an ice cream scoop, so then you'll have a uniform size for all cookies. I didn't have an ice cream scoop, so I'm just winging it. I used a teaspoon, and I'm taking out just small bits and then firming it up a little bit and rolling them into a ball, because these will spread out thanks to the baking soda that's in them. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. The size is entirely up to you. It does not matter. I feel it is a little bit of trial and error, so maybe start with the smaller ones and see if that's the size that you want, and then the second round can be bigger or vice versa. The fact that these cookies have been sitting in the fridge for an hour helps at this stage when you're trying to form them into little balls. It just makes it easier. It's not so goopy and wet. It's a little bit firmer. So definitely don't miss out putting them in the fridge for at least an hour. You could keep it for longer if you like. Once the cookies are all set, you pop them into your oven and bake this for about 13 to maybe 14 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. If you can preheat the oven a little bit, I would suggest that, but I didn't actually do it. This is the first round of cookies. As you can see, some have puffed up nicely, and they're all uneven sizes because I was playing around to see the size I want. I like this big chunky cookie, and you can see it cracked nicely on the top. This is the perfect recipe for a slightly soft, chewy cookie. So it's a little bit crisp on the outside, but inside it is completely soft and chewy and delicious. Once these come out, please let it rest for about 5 minutes and then just transfer it onto a plate or a cooling rack, and then you can store it in a box and use this for it'll stay for a week or so. Mine didn't last more than 3 days because they were actually delicious. They might not look perfect, I will be honest. I think it's because of the size. If they were all a uniform size and I used an ice cream scoop, they would probably look better, but I don't care. They were delicious. Was so happy with it, and when I say we, I mean my whole family, so it's not just me tooting my own horn. It's a simple recipe. If you're afraid of baking like me or even slightly intimidated, please use this. It's fuss-free, it's easy, and they are delicious. I hope you've enjoyed these. I will see you again very, very soon.